Welcome to the Convergence Coaching Inspired Ideas podcast. Join us as we explore great leadership and management ideas that apply within the accounting profession and in other aspects of life and business too.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of Convergence Coaching's Inspired Ideas podcast. I am Tamera Loerzel, and I am a partner here at Convergence Coaching, and I have the privilege of having Tracy White with me. She is the Chief Human Resources Officer at Clark Nuber in Bellevue, Washington. So welcome, Tracy.
Thank you, Tamera. I'm excited about being here today.
Yes, and we're here to explore what's happening today in the area of talent and HR, and some reflections on what we've learned from the pandemic over the last 6 months and how that's informing us and moving forward in our HR and talent strategies. So I'm excited you could join and share your perspective and what you're doing at Clark Nuber. So let's start with a general question. And Tracy, what's most inspiring you right now in your life or work?
I think overall it's about projects. I love projects. So at work, it's great because I'm at a place in my career where I spend probably 90% of my time on projects and developing different initiatives for the firm. When it comes to my home, my personal life, this year, 2020, is about 20 things in 2020. So I have a number of lists that I'm actually working on and completing. So I have 20 new restaurants to visit, which I've got 10 down so far. I have 20 trips to take, which obviously that's not gonna happen. So now it's hotel stays with trips. I have 20 activities or experiences I wanna do. And then I also have 20 projects that I'm doing at home. So I'm working on all those lists and I'm going to have them all done by December 31st.
I love it. And you set those back in January. Was that your New Year's resolution before all this hit?
Yes, it was. So I had to be creative now with some of my activities.
Well, I might steal that because I think we all could apply that 20 in 2020. And what do I want to accomplish between now and the rest of the year that we could add to that list? So I look forward to hearing, what that, how that goes for you and what the results are. Maybe we'll have to have you be a guest blogger too.
Okay, thank you.
Well, and the projects, I think the projects are so good because it allows us to prioritize where do we need to focus. And I think that's one of the things that we have been seeing firm leaders and staff struggle with is just the overwhelm because there's so much to do. We like to say so much opportunity. And so how do we best, focus that? And, this pandemic's caused, a lot of major shifts. And so how have you guys been approaching that at Clark Nuber? What changes have you been making to address this?
Well, I think there's a couple of things in mind. First, I think about which some of these things I know a number of CPA firms are either struggling with or maybe we're in a position similar to us. And that is one was over telecommuting. And we already had a very solid plan in place. So we were very, very prepared with having our employees, work from home. So that was a plus on our side. Now, of course, that whole program has been put on hold because now everyone is working from home or has the ability to work from home. I think the second thing was focused on technology. And so with the technology aspect of it, we were also in a position that everyone in our firm has laptops, even our front desk. We had a big major snowstorm last winter. Yeah, and that prepared us because we could not get to the office. We physically could not. And so due to that, people learned how to work from home because they had no choice. And so with that, one of the things that we rolled out was a brand new benefit, just kind of at the probably March, April timeframe, where we just gave everyone who wanted it $500 to be able to use that from a technology standpoint to buy dual monitors for their home, keyboards, mice, and such. They already had their laptops, so that really set them up really well. That benefit we are definitely going to keep moving forward. And then the third thing, which is the area that I think we could actually use some improvement on, and that was onboarding. So we had, in my mind, a very dynamic onboarding process for our employees. We were set up in such a way that it was very methodically planned out. We knew exactly how the employees were going to be, you know, having their touch points and everything, meeting with all different folks inside the firm, including the CEO. So there was a number of steps that were occurring. All of a sudden, pandemic, we actually were still having new employees on the schedule to start. So we took everything virtual, everything. And there was definitely some lessons learned there. One of the first lessons we learned was you must have technology first in your day, because it doesn't help if you have HR or the CEO first and all of a sudden the employee is not able to connect and can't see them or can't talk or whatever their problems might be. So we really wanted to make sure that we had people ready to go and could really kick off whatever their day was when they were starting. So now what we need to do though is we need to go back and we really need to review the entire process. And we need to look at the areas that we're still having problems with. And I would say some of those have been, which we're starting to get more comfortable, is around more of the one-on-one training that you would do either as a tax associate or an audit associate. So some of those types of focuses that we need to continue to drill down on. The other area is around culture. And how can we really immerse the culture into a virtual, you know, training opportunity? And so we're really kind of struggling with what that will look like. So we definitely have some work there to do.
Yeah. And prior to COVID, you were flying people in if they were remote or bringing them in. And so your whole onboarding was geared around being in person, which I could then facilitate the culture and we could do fun things. And so now we have to shift all of that to say, how do we bring that culture, that maybe family feel, that fun feel, that caring feel, and do that in a virtual environment, plus all the learning and making sure we have the technology in place.
Yes, and mentioning that, just one example of what we recently did, we've always done an event for our interns and our new starts. And they go somewhere, they do an activity together. Well, obviously that was not going to happen in Washington.
Right.
So instead what we did is we did two things. One, we did virtual escape rooms and they had a great time. We even took photos and all of that. And then the other thing we did was one of those paint parties. And we ordered the kits, we sent the kits home. They had a professional painter that they met with virtually and they painted their pictures. And so it ended up being really fun in the end and they had a great time.
Oh my gosh, I love those ideas. Those are so great. And I think that's the whole theme of 2020 is how do we pivot and how do we innovate and shift? And those are two brilliant ideas of how we did that. Well, so how have you been pivoting in terms of learning and development? How have you continued that while balancing this shift that we've had to make?
Yeah, I would say that's probably one of our sadder areas, unfortunately. So I guess the first thing to say is Clark Nuber made the decision not to lay off any employees. We did not furlough employees. We kept every employee whole. The only thing we did was we postponed our bonuses until December 31st. So with that, we needed to look at other areas to make cuts, but we didn't want to make cuts so drastic that it was really impacting an employee. So unfortunately, one of the areas was around continuing professional education. So we kept the technical skills whole. That we did do. Everything, of course, went virtual. We've been doing a number of technical courses. We're having a lot more people inside the firm do the training on those. So that has actually worked very well. The other thing that worked in our favor without us knowing this is we have agreements, contracts with various organizations that we do webinar series with them. And so a lot of those are soft skills training, technical, computer type training. And we had paid all those subscriptions in January. So we have them for the entire year. So an employee is still able to at least go online and get some form of soft skills training, whether it's, managing your time or how to be more organized or whatever it might be. They can find those types of courses online for them.
That's awesome. That's great. And so that's something to reevaluate then for 2021 is how do we start to incorporate that leadership training and those soft skills training back into our learning strategy.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think that's such a great point is, leveraging the existing resources that we already have and tapping into those and maybe even promoting them more than we did previously, making sure people were aware of them and that they could tap into them. So
Yeah.
Excellent.
I think one thing that also too we weren't really expecting is, there's such a major focus now on diversity and inclusion. And
Yes.
so we definitely, I'll be honest, we did not have a plan in place. And we're in the process of putting our strategic plan together. And what is our journey going to look like? Well, part of that journey is definitely training for your employees. This is something we've been wanting to do for the last couple of years, but it never really made the top of the list. It's always one of those things, we're going to get to it, and our organization is fine. We're very inclusive and such. And so this time, it's time to do it. And so we are seriously looking at everything. We are interviewing a number of different consultants and everything. And in the end, we ended up deciding to go with the AICPA, and we are going to be doing their diversity and inclusion training. So we'll be rolling that out probably first part of September to our leadership, and then probably by the end of the month to the rest of the employees. The other area that popped up too was on emotional intelligence. And again, that was kind of one of those things that was kind of a buzzword, for a number of years. And then all of a sudden it's just popped up with our practitioners and such. So before I always heard it in the HR world and such, and did a number of trainings myself on it, but never really with the firm. And so now we have actually scheduled a session the end of October for all employees, for everyone in the firm. So I think that's going to be pretty exciting.
That'd be great. And that emotional intelligence will start to build, some empathy and understanding in how we're working together, and especially in this new blended environment that we're in. Yes. So. And that's great. And the diversity and inclusion really has become top and front and center, I think, in 2020, along with health and safety. And so, we have to be strategic about it and have specific goals and what are we trying to accomplish. And it does start with education. So that's awesome. You mentioned not laying anybody off, and we haven't done any furloughs, which is excellent, and just deferring bonuses to the end of the year. Are there any other impacts to benefits or any changes that you guys have made around that area?
Well, once again, we tend to do our evaluation of benefits around the summer months, and then I present those to the CEO and Board of Management usually right around the fall. So fall of 2019, we did a major look at everything, and I presented a number of changes that we thought were in the best interest of the firm and our employees, and they did all of them but two. So we did everything from increasing our bonuses for passing the CPA exam. We added a bonus to anyone that passes an exam other than the CPA that's most important to their career. That reminds me too of another example is kind of with our wellness. So we very much have had our wellness program going full throttle. And one of the things with that is we always do what we call climb the 7 summits. So the highest mountains in the world. And then we throw in Mount Rainier as a bonus mountain. And so we're doing it right now. And I can't believe how many employees, one, are participating and are actually climbing the mountains and making great progress. So that has been really fun and wonderful to see.
And this, I'm going to tie it back to culture. So that's just another great way of bringing that culture in. And we can do that while we're in person. We can do that virtually, and we can do that in our blended environment. I mean, that's just a really great example of that. That's awesome. So we've moved to remote. You had laptops, technology. We filled in whatever gaps we had to fill in. Now we're just in this flex, new blended environment. And some people are not wanting to return to the office. And some people might want to return to the office, but for whatever circumstances, they can't. Some people are, dying to get back to the office. How are you handling that? What does this flex look like now in this new blended environment?
I think it's something that we've had to accept. And one of the things that we have made very clear, because we ended up opening our office back up. So come March of of this year is when we probably mid-March, we had to, we closed the office. And so everyone went remote. And then it was mid-July that we ended up reopening our office in small phases. Now, we were a little concerned at first how many people would want to rush in, that kind of stuff. And of course, we had a lot of work to do to get the office ready and to make sure that we were meeting all the requirements in Washington State. So with that, it's been really interesting. So we've done 2 pulse surveys. We'll do another one probably in the next week. And the pulse surveys were asking employees how they felt about coming back to work, and, what did that look like for them? And so in both surveys, approximately 60% of our workforce, which we have just over 240 employees, about 60% of them, 2 reasons want to continue working from home. One, they love it. They really enjoy working from home, the convenience, not having to commute, more time with family. They can walk their dog in the middle of the day, whatever it is that they want to do to help, energize them. And then the other group is a little more fearful, and they don't want to come back until there's a vaccine. So that takes a big chunk of employees, out of the mix. The next group of people were more of those people that I only want to come into the office 2 days a week, then 3 days a week, and I always want to come in. So of the people who always want to come in, I can probably count those on my hands and toes of how many of those are really coming in Monday through Friday. And I even think some of those were sneaking in during the whole time frame. So it's really helped us to be able, I think, to transition more to this and to get comfortable. But I think the other thing too, the message has been very clear, and we continue to repeat to our employees even after we reopened, was that if you do not feel comfortable for any reason, it does not matter what the reason is, you do not have to come back to the office. And so we want to continue to send that message, because we want people to be there because they do feel comfortable and they're okay with that. The other thing that we have going on in our state too is that our schools are all going to be virtual again. Grade school, junior high, high school, college, for the most part, they're all going to be virtual. And so that means we have a number of parents, working parents at home with working spouses. And yet you have children at home too, and you are having to take care of all of that. So extreme flexibility with all this. And it is what it is.
Yes. And it's one size fits one. That's what I hear you saying also. We talk about that in, HR and our people development strategies, and, how do we engage and develop and progress people. And I think this flex example is one size fits one as well. Everybody has a unique situation at home and what they're trying to grapple with. So how do we help support that and them, having meaningful contribution at the firm, and what does that look like, and marrying those things together. And that is true flexibility. I think we're the epitome of true flexibility. That's so great. Well, so what plans do you have now based on what you've learned during this pandemic, for Clark Nuber? And, what changes have you made that you want to keep? What are some new things you're now considering?
Well, I think it's kind of interesting, because when I think back, and I talked to other HR colleagues as well, we thought this was going to blow over in 2 or 3 weeks. We did not think that it was going to last a year and a half, which, is kind of, from my calculations, what I'm hearing. So that definitely made us realize too that, okay, we need to get on the stick. We need to make sure that we're doing everything that we're supposed to be doing for our offices, for our employees. And so, all of our time in HR, and certainly my time, was really spent on the pandemic and what were we going to do. The other thing too is we have a disaster plan, but we never had the information in there, the resources and tools for a pandemic. We had everything else in case of a volcano, a tsunami, whatever else. We have that all documented and what we're going to do for that big earthquake we're expecting in, Seattle. But we did not have a pandemic. So now we do. So that was a really nice lesson learned as well. I think too, the other thing was the situation we were in. Washington was the first state to have someone come down with the virus. We were the first state to have someone die from the virus. And because of this, and we were the first state to really go down in a lockdown. So being in phase one when the rest of the country was really pretty much doing exactly what they wanted to do. So, you know, explaining to employees, we don't want you traveling. We don't want you going anywhere outside the state. I mean, really, it's pretty much, you are not to be leaving your house. I mean, that was more from the governor than for us, but really making and helping employees understand that they need to stay, you know, in a situation of their own home and things of that nature. So, I mean, I think all of this has taught us a lot. And, you know, how are we going to transition that into Clark Nuber? I think we're still figuring a lot of that out, and we'll continue to figure that out over the course of time. One of the big areas too that we're looking at is, what about our office space? We have a beautiful office, and with that, you know, it's sad to see it being completely empty for the most part and really not being able to be utilized. And so how are we going to change that? And what model are we going to do differently? You know, are we going to move to more of a flex desk for every single employee? Are we, because we have a number of private offices and such? So we don't know yet, but that's something we're going to have to give a lot of consideration to and really look at how that might be different.
Yes. And I would think, you know, the whole idea of what kind of office space and how we allocate it is going to be important. And then to your point about onboarding and bringing in interns and, you know, how do we accommodate that is going to be something to consider. And what does that look like in our whole onboarding strategy, our whole intern program, our whole learning programs, and shifting that to be this combination of blended environment. And, you know, primarily remote probably still right now, but we have to think about it in terms of this blended environment.
And I think when you said interns, we also made the decision not to cancel our internship program. We brought on all of our interns, and we are making sure that they are getting to experience what it's like to be an associate. And I know that that's happening just based on the one-on-one calls, virtual meetings I have with them and such. So that it's exciting to see that, and they are so thankful that they did not have their internships, you know, canceled like many of their fellow college colleagues did. I think the other thing too is we were talking about this last May, so not this May of 2019, and we were talking about our working parents group. So we have a very informal working parents group. Well, we've decided that that is a very important group and that we need to take that formally and really make it into a formal program. I did canvass a lot of HR professionals, again, inside of CPA firms and other professional service firms, could not find anyone with a plan. And so we ended up creating our own. We're about ready to launch it. We have our upcoming Zoom meeting actually scheduled for tomorrow, and it's going to be focused on you know, what to do with children being at home during the pandemic and the school year starting, and what does that look like, and what help do you need, and what resources, what can the firm help you with. So so we have a very robust working parents group that we're going to be rolling out in a very formalized manner, and we're very excited about that.
That's awesome. I love it. One of the things that we have been saying is that firms like Clark Nuber that are continuing to prioritize and invest in these talent strategies are going to be ahead in 2021 as we start to come out of this pandemic. Your people are going to remember how they were treated and the communication that they had. And you also won't have this shortage. I think one of the mistakes we made back in 2008, 9, 10 is we canceled interns. We laid people off. We didn't invest in the development programs or learning programs. And we had this gap for 4 or 5 years in our pipeline of talent. And it was really hard for firms to catch up. And with the strategies that you guys are employing, and you have to make some cuts, and we have to, you know, we have to say, where can we invest now? Where do we need to pull back and then come back and visit it? And some of it we're not going to bring back. But I think just how strategic you guys are being, you'll have that pipeline. You'll have people engaged. You'll have people say, I can build something here. I can flex with them. They're going to flex with me. So that's so exciting.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Really great. Well, thank you so much for sharing these ideas and, what you're up to and being so vulnerable about what's going well and, what you're proud of and what's not going so well. And maybe, gosh, this is the places that we have to work. I think we all have that. And so being real about that is important too, because then we can make plans. So thank you for sharing and being so straight and candid about that. Before we wrap up, I have a couple of rapid fire questions, if I could ask.
Okay.
All right, so just top of your head on. You have to wear a t-shirt with one word on it for a year. What would that be and why?
Okay, I'm gonna pick Aquarius. So the reason why I would is whether you believe in astrology or not, it's definitely a conversation starter, and you'll know what month I was born. And you might know a little bit about me just based on what they say are about Aquarians, because I definitely am more of a true Aquarian. Yes.
That's awesome. And if you could not work for a year, what would you do?
My big dream is I want to spend 1 month in 12 different countries. And my first country that I will live in for a month would be in England. And the last country I want it to be is Bali.
Okay, and I'm going to come with you. So you tell me when that year is you're taking off, I'm coming with you. And if you knew you could not fail, what would you do?
I think I would sing. I'd be a singer. I am a terrible singer. I'm tone deaf. Oh my God, you don't even want to hear me in the shower. So nothing helps me, but that's what I think I'd want to be, a professional singer.
I can't wait to hear your first song. Wow. Thank you, Tracy. This was so fun and so informative, and I just really appreciate you being willing to be with us on this podcast. And if people wanted to reach out to you, how could they do that?
Oh, please do. I welcome, any questions, people need anything. I'm always happy to share and such. My email address is twhite, WHITE, at Clark, CLARK, Nuber, NUBER.com.
That's awesome. Great. Thank you very much. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, Tamera. You too.
Thanks for listening to the Convergence Coaching Inspired Ideas podcast. Be sure to visit ConvergenceCoaching.com to join the conversation, access show notes, and discover our fantastic bonus content. If you enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe and leave a rating and review. Have an inspired day.